It was raining. It had been raining for days on end. This was the time of year that I knew my students needed something different and exciting. A project where they could be creative, innovative, and imaginative. The day had come for students to start their creative projects. I was super excited to see how my students would grow, create, think, and work together throughout the entire process. The next morning, I sat in my classroom and thought over my lesson plans for the day. I imagined my students running excitedly into my classroom, turning on their iPads, and starting their projects with enthusiasm. Then reality set in. As students began their project work, classroom management issues became front and center. As some students went into apps they should not have been in, others were taking selfies. Yes, selfie girl, I see you. And some were on YouTube finding music and blasting it as loud as they possibly could. I found myself marching around the classroom, redirecting behaviors instead of asking my students probing questions. Was what I heard true? Once students had devices in their hands, my classroom management would become unruly? Have I lost control? Later that day at lunch, a teaching colleague of mine shared with me how he was using the Apple Classroom app to help manage his students' iPads in real time. I was skeptical at first, but became super intrigued as he shared with me how the Apple Classroom app seemed to make a real difference with classroom management. He suggested that I reach out to our VCS Apple resource teacher, Monica Prather, and request for her to show me how to use this app. I realized that with Apple Classroom, I could control what apps my students could or could not use, and see each student's iPad screen at all times. I also discovered that I could send a message to all my student iPads that would lock them down so students would focus on me when I needed them to. I immediately contacted Monica Prather, and she helped me understand how to get the most out of the Apple Classroom app. Now my students could no longer accidentally go into other apps. I loved planning my lesson and using this app to provide classroom management. It was super easy. After integrating Apple Classroom into the student creation projects, I noticed a higher level of engagement from my students. They were focused on their projects and began asking each other questions as they created. They were working with minimal distraction. Halfway through the lesson, I was able to remotely lock my student iPads for just a brief moment to engage them in several excellent discussions. The Apple Classroom app equipped me with the necessary tools I needed to support my quest to better manage my classroom by removing distractions and barriers to learning. Instead of spending instructional time redirecting behaviors, I could now do what I loved best, engaging and nurturing the inquisitive minds of my students. To request an Apple Classroom training, please contact Monica Prather through email, Teams, or click on the request form located on the vcsapple.weebly.com website.